Hey everyone, welcome back to Big Markets Think Simple. If you ask an American what they're doing this weekend, 9 times out of 10, the answer is working on the house. When it rains, the roof leaks. When spring comes, you've got to mow the lawn and restain the deck. Labor is so expensive here that home repair isn't really a hobby anymore. It's just part of everyday life. And there's one company that's tapped into that everyday life better than anyone else. It's the one with the famous orange apron, Home Depot.
수천 개의 매장에서 상품과 데이터가 빠르게 연결됩니다. 물류센터와 도시, 교회 주택으로의 효율적인 유통.
Selling nails, screws, lumber, paint, the most ordinary stuff imaginable. And now, Home Depot is trying to move beyond its store-based playbook to take over America's construction sites entirely. So why is Home Depot stepping outside the hardware store business it knows so well? And is this move going to be a new growth engine or just another weight around its neck? Today, let's look at how a hardware store started by 2 fired employees grew on the back of the American way of life and why it's now trying to paint a much bigger picture. This video is not investment advice. It's for educational, entertainment, informational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions. Any investment decisions are your own responsibility. Walk into a Home Depot and it feels nothing like a regular hardware store or a big box supermarket. Tall ceilings, endless steel shelving stacked floor to ceiling with lumber, pipe fittings, paint cans, and every tool imaginable. The floor isn't fancy tile, it's bare concrete. So the whole place feels less like a store and more like a giant construction warehouse. Even the entrance changes with the seasons. Plants and grills up front in spring, leaf blowers and snow shovels taking over in fall and winter. Head further inside and it's like walking through a house that's been taken apart piece by piece. Lumber and plywood, wiring and pipes, toilets and sinks, tile and light fixtures, refrigerators and washing machines, it's all there. It's not much of an exaggeration to say you could build and furnish an entire house with what's on these shelves. But the real thing that sets Home Depot apart isn't the sheer volume of stuff. Walking the aisles are employees in that signature orange apron, many of them with real experience in carpentry or plumbing, who can walk you through exactly which parts you need, what size, and what else you'll need to get the job done. That's how someone who's never done a home repair in their life walks out thinking, hey, I could actually do this, and ends up tossing in tools and safety gear along with the one part they originally came in for. For jobs that are too much to handle solo, Home Depot connects customers with installation services, plus tool rentals and job site delivery. And it's not just DIYers walking through those doors. On another side of the store, plumbers, carpenters, and other professional contractors, the pro customers, are buying materials in bulk for job sites. Home Depot runs separate checkout lanes, bulk quotes, business credit cards, and dedicated fast pickup and job site delivery. So you've got a family buying a can of paint on a Saturday morning and a contractor loading a truck full of lumber on Monday morning, both shopping at the same store. At the end of the day, people don't come to Home Depot because the products themselves are special. They come because you can get help even when you don't know what you need. Compare everything in one place and either walk out with it today or have it delivered straight to the job site. So really, Home Depot isn't selling hammers or lumber. It's selling the confidence that you can actually finish that home repair project. So was this plan always the plan from day one? Surprisingly, it didn't start as some grand business strategy. It started with 2 guys getting fired overnight.
Home Depot's story goes back to 1978. Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank were executives at Handy Dan, a major hardware chain in the U.S. at the time, when a falling out with the company got them both fired overnight. Now unemployed, the two met up at a coffee shop in Los Angeles and decided, let's build the biggest hardware store anyone's ever seen. That's how the first store opened in Atlanta in 1979, the beginning of Home Depot. Home Depot's explosive growth in the U.S. wasn't just about being cheap and huge. It rode a massive wave, suburbanization, and the rise of the American home as an asset at exactly the right time. After World War II, as America suburbanized, more and more families ended up owning wood-frame single-family homes with lawns, decks, and garages. Wood-frame houses need constant upkeep, roofs, plumbing, siding, and with labor being so expensive, Americans started fixing things themselves on the weekends instead of calling a professional. Home Depot planted itself right in the middle of that lifestyle. That's how Home Depot became the biggest home improvement retailer in North America, now running over 2,300 stores. But when Home Depot tried the exact same playbook in China back in 2006, things didn't go so well. China's housing was mostly apartment-based, and labor was relatively cheap, so instead of buying materials and fixing things themselves, consumers just hired contractors to handle it. The American-style DIY big box format simply didn't match the local way of life, and Home Depot ended up closing all its big stores in China by 2012. What that shows is that Home Depot's edge is deeply rooted in the American housing landscape and DIY culture. So how much money is Home Depot actually making these days? During the pandemic boom of 2021 and 2022, both revenue and operating income climbed together. But starting in 2023, the story changes. Revenue kept climbing, reaching $164.7 billion, but operating income actually fell from $24.6 billion in 2022 to $20.9 billion in 2025. The operating margin dropped too, from 15.2% in 2021 down to 12.7% in 2025. In plain terms, the company got bigger, but it's actually keeping less of what it sells. So why is that happening? Average spend per customer held pretty steady, staying in the $89 to $91 range, but the number of transactions dropped from 1.76 billion in 2021 to around 1.6 billion in 2025. People are spending about the same each visit, they're just visiting less often. So if fewer people are shopping and they're not spending more, how does revenue keep growing every year? The answer is M&A. Home Depot spent big to acquire major building materials distributors SRS and GMS, and once their numbers got folded into Home Depot's books, revenue went up. In fact, last year alone in 2025, those two companies added about $6.3 billion in revenue, more than Home Depot's entire revenue increase for the year. So recent revenue growth has come less from existing stores selling more and more from what these acquisitions brought to the table. So why aren't Americans showing up at Home Depot as often as they used to? Who's really behind Americans cutting back on their weekend trips to the orange store? The single biggest reason Americans have pulled back from pushing that orange cart every weekend is high interest rates. As the Federal Reserve raised rates quickly to fight inflation, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate in the U.S., which sat around 3% in 2021, climbed to roughly 6.5% by July 2026. These high rates put two massive locks on the U.S. housing market and home improvement spending. The first is the lock-in effect. In America, big remodeling projects tend to happen right before selling a house or right after moving into a new one. But if you're a homeowner sitting on a 2-3% mortgage, moving means taking out a new loan at 6-7%. So most people just choose to stay put. In 2024, existing home sales in the U.S. dropped to about 4.06 million, the lowest level since 1995. And as of mid-2026, the pace is still stuck around 4.09 million annually. With the housing market frozen, that pre- and post-remodeling demand that used to matter so much to Home Depot dried up too. The second is project lock-in. Existing homeowners' low fixed-rate mortgages don't suddenly go up, but buying a new home, taking out a home equity loan, or borrowing for a bigger model just got a lot more expensive. On top of that, building material and labor costs have risen too, making full kitchen or bathroom overhauls an even bigger financial commitment. Repairs you can't put off, a leaking pipe, a broken water heater, still get done right away, but a deck, a bathroom, a full kitchen remodel, those can easily wait until next year. So American consumers kept spending on the must-do fixes while pushing off bigger projects like decks and kitchen or bathroom remodels. But Home Depot can't lower mortgage rates, and it can't force Americans to buy and sell homes either. So instead of just waiting for everyday shoppers to come back, what did Home Depot decide to do?
Rather than waiting around for occasional home repair shoppers to come back, Home Depot started digging deeper into its pro customers, the contractors fixing up multiple houses every single day. To do that, Home Depot went on an acquisition spree of professional building materials distributors. In 2024, it spent about $18.2 billion to acquire SRS Distribution, the largest roofing and exteriors distributor in the U.S., and then followed that up in 2025 by acquiring GMS as well. Combined, those two deals came to more than $23 billion. Home Depot is now leaning on SRS's 1,300-plus specialty branches and roughly 16,000 delivery assets to transform itself into a full-blown construction materials platform, handling everything from ordering and quoting to payment and job site delivery. But this strategy comes with a clear trade-off. Specialty distribution businesses like SRS and GMS run on thinner margins than Home Depot's traditional retail business. Revenue goes up, but so do costs, since running massive warehouses, sales teams, and delivery fleets isn't cheap. Part of why Home Depot's operating margin has been slipping even as revenue grows comes down to this shift in business mix. And there's an even bigger issue here. This isn't actually the first time Home Depot has bet big on professional building materials distribution. Back in the 2000s, Home Depot also leaned hard into the pro market, acquiring B2B distributors to build up HD supply. But the debt, the operational complexity, and the thin margins became too much to carry. So in 2007, Home Depot sold off HD supply and went back to focusing on its core retail business. But as time went on, the direction shifted again. Home Depot got back into MRO, maintenance, repair, and operation supply distribution. And in 2020, it bought back the very same HD supply it had sold years earlier. And now, with the SRS and GMS acquisitions, it's expanding into specialty distribution on a much bigger scale than before. From retail to B2B distribution, back to retail focus, and now back to specialty distribution again. Of course, the market today isn't exactly the same as it was back then. E-commerce and job site delivery matter a lot more now, and the professional contractor market has become more consolidated. But the logic Home Depot is using to justify this move sounds strikingly familiar. Will it actually be different this time around? Let's wrap things up. Home Depot is a company built by America's home repair culture. Suburban, single-family homes, expensive labor, and a habit of fixing things yourself, that combination is what turned Home Depot into the largest home improvement retailer in the country. And that DNA is still its biggest strength today. But facing high interest rates and a frozen housing market, Home Depot can no longer just wait around for everyday shoppers to keep coming back every weekend. So it's shifting its focus towards bigger job sites, bigger customers, and a much wider supply chain. If this bet pays off, Home Depot could open up a whole new chapter of growth. But if it strays too far from what made it strong in the first place, its simplicity, it could end up losing that too. That's all for today. If this video was helpful, hit subscribe and give it a like.